I was about to say it's a massive game, but it's like not too much of a massive game. I mean, it's big in terms of a London derby. Good to see Spurs play again. Obviously want to carry on the good feeling that we had from Thursday night and get back-to-back wins and get back to winning ways in the Premier League. But it's a ground that we struggled on, particularly last season, 3-0 in a really bad defeat. They beat us early on the season as well.
They drew.
Oh, we drew
1-1.
We drew with them earlier on the season.
Yeah, we were in the midst of our injury crisis. Obviously,
in a game where we probably should have lost.
Yeah, we could have lost it easily.
Because Fulham definitely outplayed us. But Marco Silva, he's such a smart manager. Changes his tactics to suit the opposition that he plays against, and he'll have a plan, won't he, coming up in the game this weekend?
I feel like Fulham, first of all, they definitely always have a plan against the top sides to really exploit the weaknesses of the opposition. I remember watching them play Arsenal. I think they ended up drawing 1-1, but Arsenal really struggled to break them down. And Fulham were playing such a low block, and they ended up getting one counter attack, and they scored. And Arsenal were just really struggling in that game. They ended up getting a late equaliser, but I think it's just an example of how Fulham can just set up in different ways against top opposition. They're a weird team. They're very tactically flexible, but sometimes they could look a bit toothless as well at the same time up front on certain games. They'll have a really good game, like against Liverpool at Anfield. They'll get a 2-2 draw and look really creative. And then they'll draw 0-0 at home to Southampton, where they just don't look like scoring and they just look a bit lost.
It's usually the big games against the better sides that they get up for on a consistent basis.
Yeah, they usually find some sort of tactical flexibility, but sometimes that lack of tactical consistency can also hurt them a bit as well in certain games. So they are a very interesting team.
I mean, their last 3 games at home say it all, really. They've lost 2 and won 1. The 2 that they've lost, 1-0 loss against Manchester United, 2-0 loss against Crystal Palace, and then they beat Nottingham Forest 2-1. And Nottingham Forest would probably say are doing the best out of the lot.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. When they come up against teams who maybe ask them a question kind of offensively, when they're looking to break teams down and stuff like that, sometimes they don't really have those patterns, and sometimes they rely on the team coming out a bit. But then they come up against teams who try and win the game and try and beat them, then they can come up with different kind of solutions sometimes. But obviously we're going to be that team, aren't we? We're going to try and go there and win the game. We're going to play attacking football, and they're probably going to like that, I think. Yeah. I'm not saying, hopefully it'll be a closer game than it was last season when they battered us 3-0. But I think it's still going to be a game where they're going to frustrate us. They got the likes of Robertson, who's I think a top left back, full of energy, and he really exploited us last time out when we played them last season. He was a big thorn in our side. They've got a really strong midfield. I remember Paulinho was a big one last time, but obviously they lost him, but they've adapted to that. They've got some really top attackers as well. Smith Rowe, he's been great for them. Adama Traore, he's always a box of tricks. He might be out, looks like, but he's also someone that always worries you. Him, I think Andreas Pereira, solid, really great kind of technical midfielder as well. So look, there's a reason why they're in that hunt for Europe, and I know they're 10th, but points-wise, in and amongst it, because they've been pretty good this season by and large. But they do draw a lot of games. They do sometimes struggle to kind of with patterns of play and break down oppositions when they're asked to do the attacking. But it's going to be a different game on Sunday to that.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're looking at Fulham, because you would kind of suggest that Fulham are a really good home side, but actually they've only won 1 in their last 7 home games, which has surprised me.
A lot of draws.
Yeah, a lot of draws, and just 1 win in their last 7 home games surprised me looking at the stats. Well, you look at the other sense, Spurs have only won 2 of their last 7 away games, so a team that are not in such great form at home going up against a team that have been notoriously bad pretty much all season away from home.
They failed to beat Southampton and Ipswich at home.
Yeah, which is interesting, where they failed to beat them teams, but then they go and beat Nottingham Forest, they get a draw against Arsenal, they beat Brighton. So, I mean, they are such a weird team like that, 100%. I think when you're looking at the players that they have out, you're looking at Ryan Nelson, who's out on the weekend, who was a big thorn in our side earlier on in the season. I thought he gave us no end of trouble. And I think who is going to be a big miss for them is Sasa Lukic in the middle of the park. He's had a really good season for them. Suspended for this game, and I can see why, because he's always good for a yellow card. He's always very aggressive in that middle of the park. And I think with him out, I think they miss quite a bit of that aggressive edge in the middle of the park. Yeah,
I agree. I think Sander Berge has done well, but he's maybe not as actually aggressive as someone like a Lukic. Lukic is kind of, Sander Berge is a bit more technical, maybe can't cover the ground. I think they're at their best when they partner Lukic with a Berge together. That kind of, those two players cover kind of what Paulinho did by himself last season in a way. But they've kind of, a lot of the season they've been playing like a 4-3-3 with Pereira in a bit more of a deeper role and a free of Berge, Pereira and Lukic, and that kind of gives them a really good dynamic. But obviously with Lukic injured, they've adjusted. We've got them as a back three. That's what they did last game. That's not usually how they play most of their games, but last game I think they may be adapting to, I think recently, to be fair, they have been playing a back three. But I don't think a lot of the season they have. But again, that's Marco Silva just adapting to situations. That's what he does, and he's quite good at. So that probably isn't good news for us, to be honest. They're playing currently a back three because that's a formation that we're not always good against. We can struggle against that kind of formation. But the only other positive is they've been playing it, but mixed results with it. So is it a formation that they're that used to? Are they going to make a few mistakes with it? Whereas I feel like majority of the time he's been there, he's played a four at the back, and that's what they're more comfortable with, I feel.
In terms of their back three, we know Joachim Andersen, really good player with the ball at his feet, can find the runners on either side of the pitch with his ball playing ability. Bassi, I feel like, has grown this season as well in terms of what he's showing, aggressive defender. I'm looking at Spurs though, and obviously we are going to make changes going into this game, and when we do make changes like that, our performance can be a bit disjointed. We can look a bit less up for it. And that's my concerns going into the game this weekend, because we're going to come up against a Fulham side that are going to really want to win. They've got something to play for in the league, when Spurs' motivations in the league are pretty much out the window at the moment.
Yeah, I also feel like Fulham's Craven Cottage was kind of one of those games where whatever kind of mood you're going into this game, you always kind of have to be your best to win. Like even the top sides, they very rarely go there and put in a stinker and get away with a win or something. You kind of have to be really at the top of your game. If there's any drop off, that Fulham can take advantage of that. They're a good side. So
because it's a specialised pitch, isn't it, Craven Cottage? It's probably the smallest pitch that you have in the Premier League.
It's
very tight. Fans are on top of you, and Fulham are so good. I know they have only won their last 7, but they are actually good at kind of managing that situation.
Yeah, and they're just tough to play against. They always make things difficult for you, and they're always also very adaptable. So if you kind of get some advantage, you have to kind of take advantage of that advantage. Otherwise, they adapt to you very quickly, and all of a sudden, those things start to dry up. So they're a very Marco Silva's a very clever manager. He's always kind of thinking on his feet. He's very good with his changes and changing his systems, but also can lead to his team sometimes being a bit toothless. I find sometimes Jimenez can be very isolated on occasion. And I remember that game against Arsenal, even though they adapted really well and made things difficult for Arsenal, they literally scored with like their only chance. If they didn't score that, they might not have had another chance in that game. So they rely on themselves being quite clinical in these bigger games as well, which they can be. But if they miss those chances, all of a sudden, sometimes they won't come again. But then again, against us, we do give up chances, let's be fair. So I think they're not going to be worried about not creating against us.
And if Mickey van der Ven isn't playing, we're going to give up a whole lot more chances than we would if we had the back pairing of Romero and Mickey van der Ven. And with Mickey not being on international duty, it does make me think slightly that we could go for that back pairing, but it does worry me to play Mickey twice in the space of a week.
Yeah, I especially the quick turnaround. I mean, if he's up for it, then maybe do it, give him 60, 70 minutes potentially, but if there's any kind of doubt, then don't. But hopefully he can recover in time. I guess we'll have to see what Ange does. He did say there's going to be a few changes, but I don't know. It didn't seem to overexert himself yesterday, but he obviously still had to do a certain amount of running, so maybe he'll rule himself out. But obviously, I'm going to be a lot more confident Van der Ven's there. Or even if it was Danso and Romero, I'd be a lot more confident. But unfortunately, they're both out, and Davis only just returning from injury. So Davis, I don't know what kind of how condition he's in. We'll have to wait and see. But Fulham obviously got European aspirations, so they know it's a big game for them. And if they get the win there, that really takes them closer to where they want to be.
But in terms of Spurs' motivations and aspirations going into this game, obviously the league means nothing for us. But what these games do mean for us is building momentum. Ange has obviously had a lot of critics this year, and he needs to get wins on the belt in terms of just building that belief in the fan base again.
Yeah, 100%. And also, whatever you want to say about it doesn't mean anything, but everyone uses all these league stats to, beat him with a stick. When he needs to change that, doesn't he? Like, even if we're in Europa League, if we're just losing every game in the league, people next season, you lose a few more games and you'll get a load of these stats saying, oh, he's lost this amount of games, blah, blah, blah. So that can't continue. Like, he needs to start turning that around. He needs this context of his tenure to start turning around, and that includes the league games. Obviously, they're not as important as the Europa League, for sure. But in terms of the feeling around the club, the momentum of the team, the belief in the team, these things all start from somewhere, and that starts from, these kind of games. And for sure, if we can start winning these kind of games more regularly as well, that's going to feed into that Europa League campaign as well. There's going to play into each other. And you can't just expect to rock up and win a big tournament like the Europa League if you're playing as badly as we've been in some games in the Premier League. So I think it's important to show a certain level of performance, at least in the Premier League as well, to show that we are, we're not as bad as what we've been during the season, and how good we can be, and that we are a team to be feared in that Europa League.
Yeah. So, if you just bring up the form table, if you can, it's kind of opposites, haven't they? They've conceded more than we have, but we've been scoring more than they have. And it looks, in my mind, I've just got Spurs have been pretty toothless in front of goal building attacks. But I don't know if these stats take into account our Europa League game.
Yeah, maybe not. But this is what I was saying about Fulham.
Because we scored 4 against Ipswich, that's right.
Yeah, but Fulham as well can be a bit toothless. And I think especially if they're not getting Jimenez involved a bit, they kind of struggle to really have
just
chances.
Know he'll be clinical against us.
Yeah, of course. And as you say, look, they've conceded more than us. They're a team that that can be quite defensively solid, and they've in the last 5 anyway, they've conceded more than us. But I'm sure it's going to be different when it comes to the game at Craven Cottage, because they're going to come up with a tactical plan. And I can really see them making it very difficult for us.
A player who's started to get a few more minutes now and a bit more game time is Ryan Sessegnon for Fulham. Obviously came off the bench the last couple of games, started a couple of weeks ago against Wolves at Molineux, scored a goal within the first minute of the game, started a few weeks before that in the cup game against Wigan and grabbed an assist. So the last 2 games he started, he's got a goal contribution in both of those games.
Missing him?
I wouldn't say I'm missing him, but it's so classic Spurs for him to maybe come off the bench in the game and do something.
Well, yeah, for sure. And it's classic Tottenham for us to sell a player and then go on to do amazing. I'm watching the Madrid derby the other week, and Longley's keeping Mbappe in his back pocket. I'm like, what am I watching? What is going on here? Is this the same Longley we had? But I think Sessegnon, fair play to him. He's gone back to his boyhood club, and hopefully he's going to find some confidence there, because it just obviously went really wrong for him at Tottenham. He's still young enough to make a long career for himself.
24.
And he's still. I remember when he was at times at Tottenham, when he was in the first team, there were times he was good, but just couldn't stay fit. Wasn't able to get that consistency on the pitch. And I think as well, with each injury, his confidence took a shot, and every time he came back, he just wasn't as confident as the last time he was there. So he seems to be getting that back at Wolves, and I do think their move to a back three will definitely help him. If that's what that's they're playing wing backs at the moment, so I do think that would be beneficial to how Sessegnon plays. I wonder if he'll start on Sunday with a point to prove, but yeah, he seems
I don't think he'll start, because I think Robinson will be at left wing back.
Yeah, it's fair play, but I think still either way, he's maybe he'll come on whatever time he does with a point to prove and look to show Tottenham what they're missing.
10 assists he's had this season, Anthony Robinson. What a player this guy is. Surely he's going to be getting a big move sooner rather than later.
See, I would have said Liverpool are going to go for him to replace Robinson, but I think they're going to go for Kirkes because he's a bit younger. So
and a bit better as well.
And maybe probably a bit better. But Robertson, I said last season, I thought was phenomenal. I thought was brilliant last season. Wasn't maybe getting as many assists as this season, but he's really taken his game on another notch this season. I think he's actually been such a consistent left back for them for many, many years. I think he was even in the team that got relegated a few years ago when they went down under Scott Parker. But he was still good. I remember I could see he's got. I think his biggest asset.
What year did they go down?
When we had Mourinho, so like 2021.
Yeah. Was that his first season?
Yeah, I remember he was there then. I remember, what's it called? I think his biggest asset is he's just got an unbelievable physique and engine. He just goes relentlessly up and down that wing, and players just can't keep up with him. They simply, especially when you're asking a winger to track him back, they just can't. You know, if you're tracking Robertson back, you're never going to have any energy to do anything yourself, and that's why he keeps getting in those positions down the left hand side. And he's clearly really worked on his delivery, because he's putting them on a plate for Jimenez time and time again this season, or whoever's up front. And he's got a really great left foot. He's got really great delivery from the left hand side. He's one player I'm very much worried about for sure.
And the thing is with Robinson, I think that's why it's even more important for Spence to play this game, because I don't know if Porro would be able to handle it as well as maybe a Jed Spence with the engine that Jed Spence has.
You know who he'll be perfect for is United.
Yeah.
Go to United, play wing back.
Dorgu and Robinson at wing back.
He would be perfect for them. Absolutely perfect. He'd be such a great signing.
Yeah, last summer I was saying I'd love him at Spurs.
I would.
And I still probably would. I mean, if you go into next season with Robinson and Udogie on the left and Spence and Porro on the right,
I'll take that.
That would be brilliant options to have, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. He's absolutely fantastic. I think Tete's a big miss on the other side with the injury, because I think he's quite good as well. But Castagna, different kind of fullback Castagna is, but he's also quite good in his own right.
Another player who's done really well this season is Iwobi. 7 goals this season, 4 assists. I felt like he started the season on fire, and he's gone a bit off the boil maybe in recent weeks. But the skill set that he has, so physical, can take on a man as well, knows where the back of the net is.
Very versatile.
Very versatile as well, yeah. I think he's a player that we can... And you just know these ex-bloody Gooners.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe on one side and Iwobi on the other side, and Leno in goal. You just know all these guys are going to just have that extra motivation. And as well with Iwobi and Smith Rowe, they came through the Arsenal Academy. So, I mean, they're going to hate Spurs more than anyone.
For sure. I think Iwobi's having a lot of fun this season. I think the link-up between him, Smith Rowe and Nelson this season has been really, really great. And I think they've really enjoyed each other's company on the pitch. You could see it. I think, obviously, they must have played together a lot, potentially. Or maybe not youth level, because I think Smith Rowe came through a bit later than Iwobi did. But they probably know each other a lot from their time at Arsenal. And I think you can see that their relationship on the pitch, how much they enjoy playing with each other. And I think, especially in big wins and times where they're playing great football, those three are a lot of the time at the heart of it. And Iwobi, when he left Everton, people were saying, he was washed, and it's easy to forget. I think Everton signed him for big money, like 40 million or something.
Yeah.
And then he didn't quite do that well at Everton. Though he had one little period at Everton when he was in centre mid under Lampard, and he looked like he was doing something, and that didn't last that long, unfortunately. And when they sold him to Fulham for not much, and everyone thought... No,
actually, he signed for Everton for 30 million euros and signed for Fulham for 25 million euros, so it's actually not that much different.
All right, so it wasn't too... I thought it was more fast. Maybe it was with add-ons or something, and it didn't reach them. But... when he signed for Fulham, everyone was like, okay, it's just a bit of a mess signing, but he's been pretty good for them. I think he's been a really solid always works really hard. He always really good with kind of his pressing, and really hard worker. And he's showed this season he is capable of getting regular goal contributions and getting more kind of making more of an effect in the final third, which I think... That's one of the big things that has been holding him back for a lot of his career, where people say he looks good but doesn't do a lot of the time. But this season, definitely been stepping that up.
How do you see the game going? What's your score prediction?
I do think... I wouldn't be surprised if we're better than we were last season at Craven Cottage, when we got battered.
It's kind of hard to be worse.
We were terrible that day. I can see it being a bit of a close game, but I also see Fulham... I think Fulham are just going to make it very difficult for us. I think the fact they've got a free week as well, the fact that they free week to plan for this game and the energy they're going to put in the game and what they're fighting for, I just got a feeling they're going to make it too difficult, and Silva's going to come up with some tricks up his sleeve. He's going to analyse how we play and really exploit us, and I think we're good enough to hurt them as well. But I think in the current kind of situation of the club, bigger win on Europa League on Thursday, going to make many changes, and we won't have as much time to plan for this game. I can just see Fulham edging it, and I think it'll be one of those frustrating games where they probably really exploit us on the counter, get a couple of goals, and we're going to have a lot of possession, going to huff and puff and not be able to blow the house down. That's kind of how I feel it's going to go. I don't think it'll be a battering, but I feel like it'll be a tactical win for Fulham, and it'll be like a 2-1, I feel.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same in terms of the scoreline. I think we both did our predictions on the ball, predict the Prem, and we both said 2-1 to Fulham. And I just feel like the motivations of both these sides are completely different. I think Spurs, they had a decent second half against Bournemouth, decent second half against Manchester City, but with the Europa League back into play now and Spurs looking to do well in that tournament, in the quarterfinals now, I just think all the eyes are going to be on that. And I think when we make changes, it just never looks as fluid as maybe when we play our starting 11 like we saw yesterday. So yeah, I'm concerned about this game. I can't really see Spurs getting a win, maybe a draw if we're lucky, but I'm going to stay with my 2-1 loss prediction. And going to Craven Cottage is always difficult at the best of times, and this time it'll be even more difficult because of the motivations of both sides. Spurs looking to rest a few players going into this game. Fulham will have their first choice out there, and Fulham, I think, will probably be smelling blood. Marco Silva will have it drilled into them that's saying, this is not going to be a Spurs at their best. This isn't going to be a stronger Spurs 11. So I think Marco Silva will know that, and he'll drill it into them to smell the blood and to go for the victory and to be confident that you can take the victory. And I think that's what's going to happen. But hopefully Spurs can show some fight, can show some extra energy, and hopefully the players that come in will show the fighting spirit to say, look, I want to be in that Europa League team now. And hopefully, maybe the lackluster displays over the last 3 months, they can maybe counteract that with a bit of rest that they've had over the past week. So I'm kind of hoping to see a better performance and hoping Spurs can go there and do something, but I'm kind of expecting probably a loss. So.
But look, it's a chance for a lot of these players who are coming in to stake a claim.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's what they got to see it as. And hopefully as well, in fairness, like beginning of the season when we were rotating, maybe it was a bit different. But a lot of these players now who are going to be playing on the pitch have played quite a bit this season now, apart from maybe Tell. So hopefully they all should be a bit more up to speed, potentially. So maybe there's a chance that the changes won't lead to such a disjointed performance like it has done previously, but history tells us it will, so that's what I'm expecting.
Well, there you have it. That is your match preview for the Fulham game this weekend. Sim will be in the stadium getting you all the action from inside Craven Cottage. I'm going to be on here in the watch-along for the game with Marlon. So come and join me for the watch-along post-match fan show. Come and have your say after the game. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,